The member for Wakefield.
I move the motion relating to the Australian Building and Construction Commission in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper.
The member for Wakefield.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Australian Building and Construction Commission is a regulator that was conceived as part of the legislative malice that the previous government exhibited to organise labour and to the working men and women of this country. And it's a malice that we have seen over 100 years. We saw it in the 1890s in the shearers' strikes. We saw it in the 1930s in the railway strikes that brought Ben Chifley to this parliament. We saw it in Mudgeonberry and in the disputes of the 80s. And we saw it on the docks with the dogs and the balaclavas and the illegal sacking of Australians simply for being members of a union. And we see this malice towards the working men and women who are working in the construction industry. 900,000 people singled out for special observance, under special powers, special prosecution, with special penalties. And all of this simply because they want to be part of a union and want to organise and exert their rights at work. The ABCC is the last remaining edifice in what was, in the legislative malice that was work choices and was the 1998 Workplace Relations Act. And they sought to insert into Australian law all of the unfairness, all of the viciousness that they had in their hearts for organised labour. Now we look at the building industry and we know that the building industry is an industry which is at the heart of our economy. And we know it's a robust industry, it's a diverse industry, and at times it's a troubled industry. And there are many examples of this, and I'm sure members opposite will make plenty of remarks and observances about the conduct of unions and workers. But we know, of course, this is an industry which has huge problems with sham contracting, with Phoenix companies and unpaid entitlements and bills to other firms. We know it's an industry with a problem with the employment of illegal workers. And the Sydney Morning Herald on the 26th of the 6th, 2011, observed the death of Mr. Hwang, who had been working illegally in Australia since 1998 and who had died of a respiratory illness and died. He had died a pauper. He was an illegal worker here in Australia in the tiling industry and one of many who are in that industry and subject to those conditions. Never been on an employer's book, never paid any superannuation. And in their website Adelaide Now this year, dodgy builders out of control on the March 9th of this year, 2011, and it talked about unpaid construction workers who had underpaid construction workers, many on illegal visas, flooding into South Australia's construction industry. And it outlined the cases of workers on the Sapole building site which were owed $200,000 in wages by a subcontractor who had fled the country. And there were individuals there who were owed $11,000, one was owed $18,000. And these are just some of the examples of workers in this industry who have been ripped off, underpaid, undocumented, and who have taken Australian jobs. And so when we look at how the ABCC has performed and we look at how what they've done about problems such as this, they've received $182 million over the last few years, and they've had exactly 5 employer prosecutions. 0 in 2006, 0 in 2007, 0 in 2009 and 0 in 2010. And less than 5% of all prosecutions were of employers. These were quiet years for the ABCC. And this is because this regulator is myopic and blinkered, because it was conceived in malice, and that's why it has to go. It is a regulator that has not fairly applied the rule of law to this industry. It has not put in place safeguards to protect civil liberties or workers. It has not looked to be a fair regulator for the Australian people, and that is why we look forward to it being replaced by a regulator that will put at its heart the rule of law, will protect civil liberties like the right to a lawyer, will enshrine in legislation a sunset clause to protect Australians from its extraordinary powers. This is a regulator that was born of malice, and it must be replaced by a regulator that is born of fairness.